Good evening. Sure glad to see you come join our Canine Nutrigenomics Zoom for tonight. Get ready for lots of good information. Lillian is constantly learning more, and every time I listen to her talk about our dog's health and how to keep them as healthy as they can be and live as long and happy as they can, I learn more. Lillian has a 4-year degree in biology, which I say that every time. It blows my mind every time. And she has been a dog. She's shown dogs. She's bred dogs. She's an agility champ. I have one of her pups. Great dogs. And she's the biggest dog advocate I've ever known. So I'm super glad to be joined up with Lillian and be involved in what we do. And so let me introduce you to Lillian. And oh, by the way, write in the chat any questions, and then at the end, we'll catch questions and answers, and ask anything about your dogs, anything, because the information that Lillian can give you is more than you know. So enjoy.
Wow, that's hard to I hope I can live to all those expectations, but thank you, Carol Lee. Yeah, we've been friends for a long time through the dogs, of course. I think animals are just our little guardian angels, and actually I was introduced to this information through a good friend that's an equine vet. And she had helped me rehab a dog, so I trusted her. And when she called me and she says, "Hey, take a look at this," I was all ears. Like, if Julia recommends it, like I need to look at this. And we were going through a health issue with my husband, but that's a whole different story. But what happened is we all started using these products, and I had a 13-year-old dog who could barely get up, and a Labrador. And I really, honestly, I would have given her maybe just a couple more months. And then all of a sudden, this dog that needed help getting up from her bed, we come one day and she's raided the kitchen counter, and I go like, whoa, like what's going on here? So what I always say is, dogs, they don't know what we're giving them. So there's no placebo. They don't know what they're taking, and they just show us when they feel better. And that was all I needed to see, is this dog transform in front of my eyes, something like I'd never seen in 50 years of owning, training, competing with dogs, and trying every natural pathway that I could come across. I've always been partial to holistic and natural rearing, and I've never seen a turnaround like this. So I was like, okay, I need to know more. Like now I was really like, my little antennas were like, doo, doo, doo. And like Carolee said, I like science. I have my degree in biology, and although I've worked with dogs all my life, I never really worked in my biology degree, but I like science enough to make me really interested. And then when I started reading and researching, I was totally blown away. So I'm super excited to share this information always. I want to shout it from the rooftops. I want every dog in the planet, dog, cat, horse, and of course the person that loves them and takes care of them to know about this information about activation, because it was totally out of my radar, and I was so happy and blessed. It has changed every single person in my family's life and all my animals. And we've been using these products since 2013. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Carolee, let me know if this works, because technology is not always our friend. Okay, so
yes, it looks great.
That? Okay, so I'm gonna move everybody here to the right. What we're gonna be talking tonight is Canine Nutrigenomics. Nutrigenomics is the combination of nutrition and genes. It's how nutrition can change your gene expression, and in doing so, we can optimize canine health span. Now, I want to read the disclosure. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA, and these products do not intend to cure, treat, prevent, or mitigate any disease. And one of the things that really has me worried for a number of years is the rate of cancer and all the diseases that our dogs are getting. And because I'm a dog trainer and I come across of dogs of all ages, but what I have noticed is that dogs are contracting these diseases at early and earlier age. I remember when I was a little girl and you would ask someone like, oh, how old is this dog? And they would say like 17, 18, even 20. And that was the norm. I never heard of a dog dying of cancer. I never heard of a dog, with these horrible diseases that they have now. And that is something that is a horrific trend. So these are some of the people, actually this Dr. Goldstein, this was the first book on natural animal healing that I came across. And he says something very interesting. He says when he graduated from Cornell in 73, approximately 1 out of 10 dogs had cancer, and it was always a disease of the old. So if they had a dog that had a lump and was young, they didn't even consider cancer as a possibility. And he says now that they commonly see dogs under 18 months with terminal cancer. And this is another group that I follow. It's called The Truth About Pet Cancer. And this was a documentary that they did a 7-part documentary, just covering a lot of things that they interview about 7 or 8 holistic vets. And it's their take on why they think cancer is so prevalent. So they say 50 years ago, it was estimated that the cancer rate might have been 1 in 100 dogs. And today, the dog has the highest rate of cancer of any mammal on the planet. And it's 1 in 1.65 dogs will succumb to cancer. They now say that 50% of dogs over 10 years of age will be diagnosed and die of cancer. So here in this book that I highly recommend, The Forever Dog, this is a very recent book by Rodney Habib, who was the producer of this documentary, and Dr. Karen Becker, she's a holistic vet, and they say dogs are 35 times more skin cancer than people, 4 more times breast tumors, and 8 times more bone cancer, and twice the incidence of leukemia. And then this book of Canine Nutrigenomics by Dr. Jean Dodds, I love what she says. You have more influence over your dog's health than you ever imagined, even when it comes to the most serious health conditions. Please don't give up. And that is exactly what I want. What I really think that this information that I'm going to present to you today is brings that hope. So there's so many factors that are influencing our dog's health. What we need to understand is that dogs are exposed to a massive amount of environmental toxins. And this is aggravated by the fact that a lot of these toxins, when we believe, the FDA regulates, how much of this or how much of that, or how if things are toxic or not. But what we need to understand is dogs live in our environment, inside our houses. They are a lot smaller, so it's a less body volume being exposed to the same amount of toxins that supposedly is safe for a human. But we're talking a human, over 150 pounds, and dogs are anywhere from, 5 pounds to maybe 70, 80 pounds for the largest dogs. I mean, some are over, but it's getting doubly concentrated. The other factors are dogs walk barefoot. They don't wear any shoes. They don't wear any protective clothing. They don't take showers every day so we can wash off some of the things that land on top of us. They're laying on the carpets, on the furniture. They lick their fur. So this is just adding, right, to that toxic load. So we can look at all the things that they discuss in that documentary, starting from vaccines, the great amount of pharmaceutical drugs, antibiotics that are being prescribed for, pretty much anything. People who live in big cities, air pollution is a big issue. One of the things that I hadn't thought about is a lot of these toxic substances are heavier than air. So what happens is, even though those fumes from the cars and the smokestacks we think they're high up in the atmosphere, a lot of those are heavy, like the lead and things like that. They're heavy, so they're going to naturally by gravity go low to the ground, which is where most of the dogs live 100% of the time. So that's another thing that aggravates the exposure. Then we have the things like flea and tick products, the ones that are spot-ons, the collars. Dogs are, we're putting this on their skin. It's getting systemic into their bloodstream, and they're in contact with this 24/7. If you walk your dog in places where the lawn is like pristine and beautiful and green, and there's not a patch of anything, and there's no weeds, that means that grass has been heavily sprayed, and your dog is picking up that on their feet. I talked to a girl that's a nutritionist, and she said if you walk your dogs on lawns that are constantly being sprayed, you have to absolutely, when you come in, have a damp cloth and wash their pads so that they're not ingesting that when they lick their feet. So glyphosate is a huge issue. I just registered for a webinar that's going to be on the 19th talking about glyphosate. This is a global issue, and it does not just affect dogs, it's affecting humans as well, and most people are unaware of it. So glyphosate is the main ingredient that is sprayed in, so we can go up here in the GMO crops. So the GMO crops are genetically modified organisms, and they're modified so that they can withstand great amounts of the Roundup, which the main ingredient is glyphosate, so that the weeds around them don't grow, but they're not affected. But glyphosate is water soluble, so what happens when it rains, it's going to go into the groundwater, it's going to go into the river. There's actually, they have mapped where the Mississippi River goes into the Gulf. They have a huge area where the rate of cancer in humans is just off the charts. They call it Cancer Alley. And they think it's because all these, all the crops that are sprayed on the north, central north, or where all the corn and the wheat grows, that's all going into the rivers, into the water, and causing, humongous health concerns. So think about this then, dogs used to live outside, and farm dogs and things like that, and now they live inside all the time. So they say now that the environment inside our homes sometimes is even more toxic than the environment outdoors. And think of all the things like, the sprays and candles and those plug-ins, the things that you use to clean the floor, the ingredients that they put to make the flame retardant or resistant to stains. All of that is chemical upon chemical upon chemical. Now we're constantly exposed to the Wi-Fi in our homes. It's also for us, the EMF, all the, from all these communications that are constantly bombarding us. And then of course there's the water, and then food. This is a huge issue. I am a big believer in raw feeding. So it's biologically appropriate raw food. We are imposing on a dog's a lifetime of just this dead kibble that really does not have enough nutrition. If you want to learn more about food, get that book about the Forever Dog. They explain really well what the issue is with these foods that are cooked at a very high temperature, and they in turn have ingredients. They turn into ingredients that are very harmful for our dogs. And then let's not forget the treats, right? Because we love our dogs, we love to pamper them. So I know that dogs get lots and lots of treats. So it can be a significant amount of, a lot of them have, like when I go to the store, I would say 95% of the treats that they sell at the supermarket, I would not feed to my dogs. Because if it has food coloring or preservatives, it's just needless. It has zero nutritional value, and it's just adding to this massive overload of things. So what we need to take into account is what are the things that we can control. Like obviously if you live in a city, you have no control over the air, but you do have control of what you put inside your house, what you use to clean, and the food you give them. That's going to make a huge difference. So the issue with the environmental toxins is that they cause something called oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is free radical damage. Some people understand about free radicals, they haven't heard about oxidative stress. But what happens is free radicals that are a byproduct of eating and breathing air, because all mammals, we need to breathe, and the oxygen in the air um, will create this oxidative stress. The easiest way to explain that is when we cut an apple or an avocado and we leave it out in the counter. After a while, it's going to turn brown, right? This is oxidation. This is this oxidative stress. So we're very familiar with that. Something exactly like this is happening inside our cells. And so these free radicals are these red bad guys. And then what they do is they attack a healthy cell because they are missing an electron. So they're stealing one electron from a healthy cell to make themselves stable. So what happens is that this oxidative stress will lead to inflammation, and chronic inflammation, when left unchecked, will lead to disease. There are over 200 diseases, including cancer, and this is both for humans and animals, that are associated with oxidative stress that is caused by free radicals. Now, do you know, can you guess how many free radicals your dog makes every single day? This is the quantity. It is estimated that dogs make 300 followed by 24 zeros. I think this is something like 300 septillion free radicals per day. And this is going to affect every single organ system in the body, from the brain, the heart, the kidneys, the gastrointestinal system, skin, lungs, eyes, everything. So this day in, day out, the accumulation is of this oxidative stress damage is one of the theories of why we age, not only for dogs, for all the animals, for all mammals, and for us humans. Now, you don't have to believe me. There is a website called pubmed.gov. This is a government site, is the National Institute of Health online library. And if you go there, this is not owned by any company, it's a government site, and you type oxidative stress and any condition that you are be interested, heart disease, liver disease, cancer, you name it, you will, a bunch of studies will come up. So I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. Most of these studies we do not understand, but what the doctors have taught us is that if you type, let's say if I type oxidative stress, arthritis, and all of a sudden 12,000 studies come up, what this suggests is that there is a link between the condition and oxidative stress. So if we can reduce that oxidative stress damage, we can go a long way into, like we say, we can't say we cure it, but we're going to go a long way into mitigating what is causing. So that would be the root cause of that disease. So up to now, what we have been reading and what we've been taught is that the only solution is direct antioxidants, right? We know that's why we need to eat lots of fruits and veggies and eat from the rainbow and all of that you eat. And why is that? Because an antioxidant now is a good guy that will give one of its electrons to the bad guy. So now the bad guy is stabilized and it doesn't steal it from a cell. So it basically stops that oxidation process. So the issue is that with direct antioxidants that come from food, colorful fruits and veggies, and then think again, I don't see any color here. So that is one big issue, that one of the ways that we could possibly combat this free radical damage is through leafy green and colorful fruits and veggies, and those are absolutely non-existent here. And then the other method is, we've heard, is vitamins, right? We take antioxidants and ginkgo biloba and this and that, and then that's one way. And I'm not saying that's not true, but it is a direct method. So one antioxidant molecule will neutralize one free radical, and then they're both done. So it's 1-to-1, one and done. So let's look at this logically, right? So if a dog's body is making this amount of free radicals, how much of this do I need to be able to do a dent if it's on a one-on-one. So that's just going to maybe take 1-0 away if you were feeding your dog a super duper diet full of colorful fruits and veggies and some supplements, right? So obviously it's like throwing a Dixie cup of water on a house on fire. It's not going to do much. So is there a better way? That is nutrigenomics. It's how nutrients can affect our DNA. So what they have discovered, this is new science, is that virtually every single gene in the body has some sort of direct or indirect relationship with nutrition. And we really, really are what we eat. So what this means is genes can be turned on or off. This is a new field for those of you that like science, like I do, called epigenetics. So the genes can be turned on, just like, so this is like a light bulb, just to make it a simple idea, but it's turning on genes in your DNA, or they could also be turned off. So when we have genes that cause inflammation, we can turn them off. When we have genes that code maybe for a disease or cancer, those can be turned off. So in a nutshell, what it is food, nutritious food, certain nutrients can send a signal to be turned on or turn off, and the body can be activated, that cell can be activated to make more of the good guys. And those good guys inside your cells are called antioxidant enzymes. Now, why is that so important? It's because enzymes are way, way, way more efficient than the one-to-one. So there are gene instructions, or they're called genetic pathways, that can be activated. One of them is called NRF2. So NRF2 is a protein that when activated, it tells the cell to make more antioxidant enzymes, anti-inflammatory enzymes, and detoxifying enzymes. It also sends instructions to repair DNA. It protects against oxidative stress damage, and we now know that that affects every single part of the body. And it regulates something called apoptosis. Apoptosis is programmed cell death. So the cells are supposed to, reproduce and make part of whatever organ it is, and then after a while they die and they get replaced by new cells. When that process is messed up, the cells continue reproducing, and that is one of the theories of why tumors are formed. Is this apoptosis is messed up. So regulating that and being able to repair DNA is super important, because the cells are making copies of themselves, right? So if I have a faulty copy, think of it as like, let's say I have a written document and I put it in my pocket and I leave it there and I wash it and I go like, oh my God, I washed this thing. So now I, take the creases out and I make a photocopy of that. And then every time that copy is going to be less and less readable. Okay. So that's exactly what happens with the DNA. If you have a mutation in the DNA, that can be repaired. The cell has a way to do that. If it doesn't get repaired, that next cell has that, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And that is another way that disease processes can come. Another pathway is the NRF1 pathway, and it's another one that can be turned on. And then this pathway, some of you may remember from 6th grade, something called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is these little organelles, and we have thousands of them. So, for example, a heart cell can have like 3,000 to 5,000 mitochondria per cell. Imagine that. Your brain, your heart, and your muscles have the most amount of mitochondria because the energy demand in those organs is humongous. So these little organelles make something called ATP, and ATP, think of ATP as currency. So if you go to the store, to the supermarket to buy something, you need cash, credit card, check. You need some sort of currency to pay for your groceries. So for everything that happens in the cell, the currency is ATP. So as the ATP production declines as we age, and also with oxidative stress, we're going to have less and less production of cellular energy. So when we activate this pathway through nutrition, We can increase the amount of mitochondria and how well they'll function. It will increase cellular energy, and it'll improve physical performance. So that's also important. I compete with my dogs in agility, so that's also an important aspect. We need energy for everything, but if you have an animal that's a competition animal, it's super important. So what they have discovered is that we can activate the NRF2 and the NRF1, excuse me, with very, very specific nutritional compounds. So we have this NRF2 that has turmeric, green tea, bacopa, milk thistle, and ashwagandha. These are all herbs, natural compounds, and mixed in a specific ratio of this product called Protandim NRF2, it will reduce oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days. That is so true that the company was granted a patent because of this particular ability to reduce oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days. And a patent is really incredible, because if it's a formula patent, you have to prove that it works 99% of the time. So it's not just 10% or 30%. You know, some of these studies are, when they do some scientific studies, they go like, oh, 20% of the population showed improvement in blah, blah, blah. Well, they had to prove that it worked 99% of the time. So they did some clinical human studies, and what they found out is the light blue line is how oxidative stress increases as we age. So this is a 20-year-old person. When we're 80, it's here, because our own production of those good enzymes starts declining. And then what they found is that when they gave people this formula, this NRF2 formula, it stayed the same. So at the end of the study, they could not differentiate the blood of a 20-year-old person from that of an 80-year-old person. And that is just like unheard of. And that's what they were able to prove, and that's why they got the patent. So something similar, then this company went and say, oh, you know, let's see, we can activate other pathways. And they came with this formula, rhodiola, coenzyme Q10, grapeseed. Some of you might have heard about resveratrol. There was a lot of talk about resveratrol a few years ago. Alpha lipoic acid and quercetin. Quercetin is very important for the brain function and a lot of other things they're finding out. But remember, it's a specific ratio that this was, let's say, that they found that will activate these genes by 65% and 71%. So very, very, very impressive. So let's talk a little bit about why. I think sometimes it's hard to grasp the difference between what a normal antioxidant, vitamins do, and what the enzymes do. So remember that it was a 1-to-1 ratio for direct antioxidants. When you activate your enzymes, it's 1 to 1 million. So one of your body's enzyme can neutralize 1 million free radicals per second. So imagine that every second, boom, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. So there is almost no comparison to, it's like a rotary phone compared to a smartphone, pretty much what we're talking about. So, and the other very important aspect is that the enzymes recycle themselves. Remember, with the direct antioxidant, is one antioxidant molecule neutralizes one free radical, and boom, they're both destroyed, gone. You have to eat more good food to be able to replenish that. So can you see now that with this avenue, we could knock off, you know, all these zeros off of those 300 septillion free radicals that we make every day. This is the patent, so you can see it there. And I want to talk a little bit about glutathione, because glutathione is one of the enzymes that gets activated. So what they were able to prove is that this Protandim NRF2 formula is 18 times more effective than the products taken individually, because that's another common thing that people think, like, oh, you know, I drink green tea and I can go to the health food store and get milk thistle, and I also take turmeric. But you see that these ingredients tested on their own, they have almost zero, you know, very little to sometimes negative ability to activate some of these enzymes. But when put together in this ratio that they were able to patent, so it's like a secret formula, it was 18 times more powerful. So that is a huge, huge difference. So glutathione, I emphasize on glutathione when I'm talking about the dogs because of that toxic overload that we talked about in the first slide. Glutathione is the master detoxifying enzyme in the liver. And on top of that, it can slow down the aging process, increases energy, reduces muscle and joint discomfort, which is huge for dogs because a lot of the older dogs, like my old dog, you end up having to euthanize them because they can't walk anymore. And maybe all their other organs are fine, but they can't walk. It strengthens the immune system, detoxifies, improves mental focus and clarity, but improves the skin. Skin conditions are also a big issue in a lot of dogs, and athletic performance and recovery. And then again, similar to the graph, this is how the oxidative stress level goes up as we age, and this is how our glutathione levels come down as we age. So you can see they're inversely related, and it's like a double whammy for the body, right? We have more oxidative stress and we have less enzymes to be able to fight it. So this is something that started resonating with me when I started reading a little bit more about the mitochondria, because now there's lots of studies pointing out to mitochondrial dysfunction and cancer. And then that's when my brain went like, bing, 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 how is this, how could this benefit our dogs if the rate of cancer in dogs is just astronomical? So if you go online and you research mitochondrial disease, there's a mitochondrial disease, but even if they're not deceased, even if they're not working tip-top shape, look at all the problems that can come up, right? And then with dogs, heart disease, heart failure, unexplained kidney disease. I cannot even tell you how many dogs I read on Facebook, like, oh, their kidney values are elevated. The doctor doesn't know what it's about. Well, now we know. Cancer, unexplained liver failure. This is another one. You take your dog to the vet, they run the blood tests. There's a lot of seizures in dogs. And then these are things that, oh, is it the diet? Is it this and that? And basically they're just, shooting darts to see kind of like what can stick. So this is something, there's this book called Tripping Over the Truth by this Travis Christofferson, where it's all about the mitochondria. And he says the condition of the mitochondria dictate the capacity of the cell to function over time. As they decline, cellular operations decline. And then, oops, why did it go that way? Okay, oh, this is the book. So look at these. These are some little excerpts from this book. If a cancerous cell's nucleus is transplanted into a normal cell, the cell remains normal. But if you transplant the mitochondria from a cancerous cell into a normal cell, the cell becomes cancerous. And you go like, whoa. And of course, these are, in vitro experiments, blah, blah, blah. They have to do more research, but what his conclusion is, cancer cells have damaged mitochondria. So what the damaged mitochondria do is they start sending emergency signals, and then the DNA responds and the cell begins to start behaving like a cancerous cell. It's that uncontrolled proliferation, which creates tumors, DNA mutations, and evasions of cell death. So what they propose, not only him, like a bunch of scientists that he talks about their experiments here in the book, so we always think, oh, there's a genetic component, and then if you have the gene for X cancer, then you're going to have the cancer. And what they're saying is, no. Like when your mitochondria get sick and start dying or malfunctioning, then you get the DNA damage, and then you get the cancer. So that's why they call it, see how the metabolic theory of a cancer, it's all in our metabolism. But we all know that our healthcare system is just in favor of chemo and radiation as the only way to treat cancer. So let's talk a little bit about just, kind of resuming everything we've said. What is activation? Activation is the ability of turning on or turning off some of the genes in our DNA. And we can turn on genes that code for protection, which are all the antioxidant that help the cell detoxify with the glutathione, catalase, and SOD, and anti-inflammatory. So it lowers inflammation at the cellular level. This is this NRF2 pathway. If we combine that with the NRF1 pathway and get that activated, we have healthy mitochondria, we have more energy and more vitality. So it's like a no-brainer. So this is Carolee's part. She is our before and after explainer. So again, not meant to treat, cure any disease, but it is what it is.
So, Lillian, you're going to have to help me with the first one on the top left, that growth. Did they remove that surgically? I've got a story with my sister's poodle, but not.
No, this one is just started waning down, like it just started disappearing.
Okay, just with using the NRF2.
Yes. Oh, because these are my kids. Yes. So Nega is a little kitty that was a rescue from a friend of mine. She lives in Brazil. Well, she kind of passed away. Nega passed away, but this was several years ago. So when my friend Ike found her little foot was broken. And can you see here how the pad of her foot is here and not down here where it's supposed to be? So she was walking on this part and it had developed this huge callus, and they had tried to do surgery and skin grafts and this and that, and nothing helped. And the vet said, we're going to have to amputate the leg. It's the only thing that we have left to do. So Ike approached me and said, hey, I've seen your post about the little yellow pill. Do you think it could help? So we moved heaven and earth, we were able to ship some NRF2 to Brazil, and she started giving it to her, and lo and behold, look what happened. Like this, I think it was like a matter of like 3-4 months, and this turned into this. And then this is a dog that belongs to one of my students. This is unbelievable. So Eli started limping, and Michelle is his mom. She works at a vet, but she's one of my agility students. So she made a comment that, oh, we think we're going to have to amputate Eli's leg, another amputation. And I go like, what's going on? And they say, well, we took an x-ray because he's limping so much, and it was so bad we thought it was bone cancer. We had to call the specialist in Gainesville to look at the x-rays. So this is not Eli's knee, the one on the bottom. This is how a knee should look, a dog's knee should look. This is what his knee looked like. It was so messed up, they thought it was bone cancer. So I said, well, why don't you just try this? So I forget all about it. About 3 months later, she says, oh, who's doing great? And I go, who? Eli. I'm like, really? He says, yes. He's jumping in and out of the car. He's not limping anymore. He's running around with, and I go, you got to send me a video because I don't believe it. And she did. And she now, last year, they moved to Virginia. So this is Eli running uphill in the snow. And then the last thing she sent me is he's jumping. They have a little creek at the end of the property, and he just zooms. This is another lovely, lovely story. It has a sad ending, but she did get like 6 more months of quality life. So Bella was born with a liver shunt, and they were ready to put her down. Took her to 3 vets. This is what she looked, all bloated. Didn't want to eat, didn't want to move. And we started activating Bella. And this was 2 years ago in October. She was dressed as a sushi for Halloween. And she started, eating again and playing with the other dog. And it was just beautiful. And, liver shunt is very, very, it's incurable. But we gave her a good 6 months, which in a dog is a lot. And she lived, really happy all the way to the end. So that's another good story. Okay, these are yours, Carolee, right? You are muted.
I have the Labrador. That one's my friend who couldn't get any hair to grow on this dog. Look, it just kept getting worse and worse. And she simply started the NRF2. She gave that dog a half a tablet once a day, and her hair grew back. All of her hair grew back, and she never had another problem. So I don't know the others, Lillian.
Well, this one I know she was a rescue, and the same issue. You know, this is how she came, and you know all the itching and the scratching, and look at her here. This dog I think has seizures, and he's doing way better with the NRF2 and we're using for seizures. We're doing NRF2 and NRF1 for maintenance and for these kind of skin issues. The NRF2 by itself works beautifully. I think Shar-Peis have something they call it like Shar-Pei fever, and it's really horrible. They get so inflamed. This dog, I think the lady for over 6 months, they had tried everything in the book and started the NRF2, and look at him here. It's unbelievable. This poor little dog the same way. And I don't know that these two have the same issue. If it's this one, I know it did say Shar-Pei fever. This one, I don't know if it's just like this horrible rash, but just great improvements. And then as a trainer, one of the things that I run across is sometimes like emotional issues. You have dogs that have severe anxiety, separation anxiety. They're afraid of their own shadow. So Jordy is this gorgeous Belgian Tervuren, and all of a sudden I can only describe it almost like as a panic attack. So we would be working in class and he'd do great and he's jumping and doing everything, and all of a sudden, like he saw a ghost, boom, he just wanted to get in his car. We couldn't get him out. And then it started happening at the dog shows. If he went by and a dog barked at him or something startled him, the speakers on the loudspeaker, something, he would just put his tail down, couldn't show him anymore. And then I recommended to his mom, Kathy, say, hey, you've got nothing to lose. Why don't we put him on this? And I think it was like 3-4 weeks later, he won Group 1, and I think we served Best in Show. And he's never had that issue ever since. Saya was a rescue, and they think that maybe the family that had her, the little kids kind of tortured her a little bit. She was deathly afraid of kids and super shy, barking nonstop. When she first started training with me, I had to be like 20 to 30 feet away from her because she would just shy away. And again, it got so bad that she got it's called hemorrhagic gastroenteritis, and they just start diarrhea and vomiting blood all over. It's like it's horrible. And she woke them up one night when they heard her throw up, and when they turned on the lights, they couldn't believe it. There was blood all over the place. They rushed her to the ER. And the vets just said, well, we can kind of patch her up and get her out of this, but it's caused by stress and she might have it again, and maybe she won't make it the next time. And again, we started her, and I think it's going on 4 years. She's never had a bout of it again. But not only that, she now she takes foods from kids. She's much calmer. They don't have to cover her crate at trials. She's also an agility dog. And this one I love because one of the things that my hope is that people understand that we need to do this preventively. If we wait till our dogs are like 10 years old, well, now we're in that horrible stats of 50% of them are going to get cancer. And then I think it's too late. So Emma has been activated for a long time. And I think there's a span of 12 years in between all these pictures. And you can see that at age 12, she's jumping almost exactly the same height. I mean, I don't even know which one is which. So we did this to celebrate her 15th Agility Trial Championship. And this is a dog that I think Emma passed away last year, but she was jumping this much until, the few weekends before she passed. And I think she got to be over 15 years old. So I just think that this is wonderful that we can do this for them and just keep them healthy, because she never in all that time had absolutely any issues. So I love that. Okay, this is your girl.
definitely know little Lacey. Lacey introduced me to these wonderful products. Lillian introduced me actually, but I gave it to Lacey. She was 12 when she started on the Pro Tandem or the Pet Tandem in her case. And she was vivacious, happy, raced me all the time. Every time I went to the barn, which is like 500 or 600 feet from the house, we'd race on the cart and she'd bound all around. And then for a couple of years, she was too painful in her joints to do that. And I tried everything that said across the board, and I did just what they said. Nothing helped my little dog. This blows my mind. I simply gave her Pet Tandem, and within maybe 2.5 to 3 months, she's back. She was racing me. She was bounding. We're playing again. She played with her little puppy Labrador. I mean, phenomenal. Just to see that simple little pill make that massive change in my dog. That is what got me started here. And then Lillian, I don't know Meaty or Bracken.
So these are older dogs. I love this because I think one of them is 16 and the other one is 17. I think this one is 17. And you know, don't give up on the old dogs. Like now I'm helping a lady, I think her dog is 15 or something, and she's already starting to see improvement. So these were dogs that were just going downhill, not wanting to, you know, participate in life or, you know, have fun, go for a walk. And then now they're going for walks, they're going for 2-mile walks, and, you know, older dogs. So it's just amazing what, you know, the oxidative stress, reducing that can do. Okay, these are your kids.
They are. That little hairy one on the top, her name is Thelma. And I don't know this, both of these women actually, I met on Facebook just because we have a mutual love for animals. And her little dog was so sick and they kept taking it to the vet. She was terribly sick and in a lot of pain, and they kept taking her to the vet, and she just wouldn't get better. And if you distributors know, it's not really easy to get someone that you don't know to kind of believe and understand how good our product is. But finally I did. And oh my gosh, that dog turned around so fast, and Mama is so happy. She's back to her good self. Her hair coat is better than it ever was. And she's happy and running with her family. It's just, I'm blown away all the time because it's so simple to help our dogs. And then the other one, that poor Sharpei, again, I didn't know Walter's mama, and she was asking for a miracle. And I kept knocking on the Facebook door, and finally she let me in. And this dog had been to 3 vets. 3 vets said, sorry, we cannot help your dog anymore. They were keeping him alive. They actually recommended that she put him down, 3 different vets. She was keeping him alive with just some IV fluids. And was it his liver that was going, Lillian?
No, it was his kidneys. Okay. He was in kidney failure, and he had not been eating or drinking for the past week.
She just stayed up with him all night. She held him and cried with him, and finally it worked out. She's 2 hours away from us, and she said, can you get me some pills? Can you get me some pills? And my farrier was going to her town. So she met him, got Walter to take it, which wasn't easy, but Lillian helped her understand how to get it in him. And within 3 days, he started to eat again, and he started to gain weight again. And within a couple of weeks, this dog that was knocking hard on death's door was out running the trails with Mama and the horses. So again, it just works. It was scary because he was so far gone, but he's great. He's gained weight. He has more vitality than he had before. He's a wonderful story.
And I remember another issue with Thelma is that they could not keep weight on her, and she started gaining weight, and lots of good things. So this is my thing: prevention. Some of you may be familiar with this. Most people are not. We've all heard this ratio of 1 year in a dog's life is the equivalent of 7 in a human. Well, it turns out we were really, really off. They did a study at one of the universities in California, I think it was Davis, where they have these markers for aging because they've mapped the human genome and the dog genome. And what they discovered is that dogs age exponentially. So I was in shock. I wanted to cry when I read this study. And if anybody wants it, just give me your email and I'll send you the link. Or you can, even if you just Google age study University of California, it'll come up. So look at this. By 1 year of age, our dogs are 30 years old. By 4 years, they're over 50. So this is the exponential growth, and then it kind of levels. So a 9-year-old is the equivalent of a 65-year-old person. But what this means is in 4 years, our dogs are aging to be 50. And this is my emphasis. Start early, start early. This is the prevention. Both Carolee and I have the same vet. She's a holistic vet. And we have our babies are going to be 5 in November. Unbelievable. So from my litter, I have 2 and Carolee has 1. And when we took them to the vet for their 4 months, she asked us, she's also a distributor. She says, you already have them on NRF2. And we're like, no, they're just 4 months. She says, no, start right now. And later when I found this study, I was like, boy, was she right. Because, this would be 6 months. They're like 20. And by 20 is when pretty much all of that we read about starts declining. So this is my Carolee, Vivian, and I were on this mission. We want to save 100,000 animals' lives. So we're recruiting voices. I'm excited to have so many distributors on board, but we need to get this message out because the issue with the animals is really, the cancer issue is getting to, it's an epidemic. It really is an epidemic. So we want to have less of this sickness and suffering and disease, and we want to have more happy dogs. So we're working with very successful team. We call our team CEO Women. Anybody's welcome to join us. We're showing women all around the world how to create additional income using their computer and their phones and things like this Zoom meeting while following our passion to help the animals. So we're looking for people in all of these countries. We need the whole world to know that this is available, that it's effective, that it's cost effective, and that it can help our animals in so many different ways.